Tom Bower's new book drags Meghan Markle and Harry into a paternity storm, now shaking their marriage.
The story kicks off with a shockwave that nobody saw coming. And honestly, once you hear it, you can't unhear it. A new book, a familiar name, Tom Bower. And not just another royal recap or recycled scandal, but something far darker, far messier, and way more personal than anyone expected. This time, he isn't just poking at image control or palace politics. He's stepping straight into the most radioactive territory possible. Rumors of infidelity, whispered relationships overseas, and the unthinkable question hanging in the air about Archie's paternity. And the way it unfolds feels less like gossip and more like watching a dam crack in slow motion. Bower claims he's pulled together years of hidden details surrounding Meghan Markle, private schedules, unexplained trips, personal connections, and even that cross bracelet that keeps popping up in photos people once brushed off as meaningless. Suddenly, nothing feels random anymore. Everything feels connected. What makes this hit harder is that it doesn't stay trapped inside the book. The moment excerpts start circulating, witnesses begin stepping forward. Not influencers chasing clicks, not pundits playing hot takes, real people, anonymous accounts, and then, more explosively, someone from inside the family itself, Samantha Markle, deciding she's done staying quiet. Each voice adds another crack, another doubt, another question that refuses to sit still. And at the center of it all, Harry and Meghan's marriage drags straight into a tug-of-war where trust, loyalty, and truth are all being weighed in public. By 2025, Tom Bower returns with what he calls unfinished business. He isn't selling this as entertainment. He frames it like a reckoning. Years of tracking, collecting, verifying. Over 80 sources, he says. Former staff, leaked emails, internal documents, information never released before. And the anchor point of his new book is the 2024 Colombia trip, the one Archie promoted as humanitarian, progressive, empowering. The kind of trip that looks spotless on paper. But Bower insists the real story lived behind the itinerary. According to him, this Colombia connection didn't begin in 2024. It stretches back years, all the way to 2018, to the period when Meghan was pregnant with Archie. And that's where the tone shifts from eyebrow-raising to downright unsettling. Bower claims Meghan had private contacts and parallel schedules tied to Colombia running alongside official royal duties. Not once, repeatedly, quietly. He doesn't outright accuse. He does something far more dangerous. He leaves gaps. He highlights inconsistencies. He asks why. And then the internet does what it always does. It explodes. Photos start circulating. Allegedly Meghan at a hotel in Bogota in 2024. Cozy, comfortable, close with a man no one can name publicly. People zoom in on timestamps, travel overlaps. The bracelet again. Netizens start connecting dots faster than anyone can control. And suddenly the question isn't whether this is a witch hunt, but whether something real has been buried for too long. Just when it feels like the story can't get heavier, it takes another turn. A villa cleaner. Not a celebrity, not a royal insider, someone with no clout, no platform, no reason to insert themselves into global drama. And yet they do, because, in their words, they couldn't live with it anymore. They describe finding a suitcase, Meghan's name unmistakably marked, and when it's open to be returned, what's inside isn't clothes or souvenirs, but printed personal documents. Emails, physical paper dated 2018, over and over again. Emails referencing the pregnancy period. Emails involving someone identified as a Colombian mining tycoon, or at least someone directly linked to mining operations in Colombia. The witness is clear about one thing. They didn't snoop, they didn't copy, they didn't photograph, they didn't steal a single page. They followed protocol because they were terrified of losing everything. But what they saw burned into their memory. Pregnancy, repeated correspondence, Colombia. They stayed silent for ages. Fear will do that. Fear of lawsuits, fear of being labeled a liar, fear of having your life destroyed for opening your mouth. But silence doesn't erase what you've seen, and eventually it eats at you. When observers step back and look at this account, what stands out isn't proof. It's structure. Each detail alone could be dismissed. Together, they form a timeline that refuses to be ignored. Printed emails instead of digital traces. The exact pregnancy window. The same country resurfacing years later. Investigative journalists know this pattern. Long-term connections don't live in one moment. They echo. And the silence around it all? That's where suspicion thrives. There's no clear explanation for why documents from 2018 would still be traveling internationally in 2024. No direct clarification, no detailed denial, and that vacuum becomes oxygen for doubt. Then Samantha Markle steps in, not through tabloids, not through anonymous leaks, through her own voice, on her own podcast. She doesn't scream accusations. She anchors her story in a specific memory, 2012, after their grandmother's death. A family in turmoil, Samantha driving to Meghan's place in Los Angeles hoping for connection. What she says she walked into changed how she saw everything. Meghan opening the door with a man Samantha didn't recognize, a South American accent. Attention, she says, was immediate. And then the line that stuck with her all these years, delivered cold and firm. This is a relationship that helps me go further. I need him for big opportunities. At the time, Samantha says she swallowed it. The family situation was too fragile to explode it then. But memories don't disappear. They wait. Years later, leaked images surface. The same bracelet, the same man Samantha believes she met back then. She doesn't claim certainty, she claims continuity, a relationship that didn't vanish, but resurfaced at critical moments. Archie's response comes fast, sharp, legal, calling the allegations baseless and malicious, promising lawsuits. But it doesn't address the details, it doesn't explain 2012, or the bracelet, or the documents. And in today's media climate, silence on specifics speaks louder than general denial. And that's where the story crosses another line. Because then Bauer introduces money. Not rumors, not memories, transactions. An anonymous former employee from a Cayman Islands private bank. Someone who handled ultra-wealthy accounts. Someone who claims they stumbled across a pattern during routine review. Transfers totaling over $2 million between 2018 and 2019. From a mining company linked to the Colombian tycoon, into an account tied to Meghan, regular, cyclical, with notes reading loving support. That phrase alone sends shockwaves through anyone familiar with banking norms. These weren't business transactions, at least not standard ones. And the timing, overlapping with pregnancy and birth. Bauer claims this is where everything ignites behind closed doors. Harry, furious, cornered, humiliated, demanding Meghan release Archie's DNA test to shut it all down. Not for social media, not for tabloids, but because he can't live under suspicion anymore. Meghan refuses, and that refusal becomes the fracture point. Their arguments aren't polite, they're raw, brutal, personal, privacy versus proof, protection versus perception. And when Harry asks, if you're clean, why are you scared? Something breaks that can't be easily repaired. From there, the fallout turns quiet, and that's the most dangerous kind. Business partners stop responding, projects stall, contracts freeze, no announcements, just distance. In the image economy, silence means trust is already gone. Public opinion shifts too, from curiosity to judgment, from is this real to what are they hiding? And while the palace stays silent, the narrative runs wild. Harry reportedly spirals. Meghan reportedly rages, then collapses in private, protective of her child, furious at betrayal, planning legal revenge while watching her carefully built image unravel thread by thread. And that's where this part ends. Not with answers, but with everything hanging in midair. Because once suspicion takes hold, it doesn't need proof to survive. It just needs silence. And as all of this drags on, the strangest thing isn't the noise online, it's the stillness everywhere else. No surprise appearances, no reassuring interviews, no carefully staged smiles meant to reset the narrative. Just distance. Days passing with nothing but recycled statements and legal threats that feel more defensive than confident. That kind of silence doesn't calm storms. It feeds them. Behind closed doors, the pressure keeps stacking. Harry isn't just fighting rumors anymore. He's fighting the slow realization that his own identity is being questioned right alongside his child's. Friends reportedly noticed the shift in him first. Less certainty, more edge. A man who once doubled down publicly now struggling to do it privately. It's one thing to defend your wife against tabloids. It's another when the doubts crawl into your own house and sit there unanswered. Sources whisper that Harry begins withdrawing, not dramatically, not with declarations, but with absences. Longer walks, locked doors, nights spent replaying conversations that ended without resolution. The demand for proof didn't come from cruelty. It came from desperation, from wanting one solid thing to hold on to while everything else feels like quicksand. But once that demand was refused, something fundamental shifted. Trust doesn't always explode. Sometimes it just erodes until there's nothing left to stand on. On Meghan's side, the isolation cuts differently. She isn't just battling a scandal, she's battling a loss of control. The very thing she's always prided herself on, command over her narrative, has slipped through her fingers. People aren't listening anymore. They're speculating. And speculation is a beast that doesn't need facts to survive. It only needs unanswered questions. Those close to her say she's torn between fury and fear. Fury at Samantha for reopening old wounds. Fury at Bauer for stitching together years of her life into something sinister. Fury at Harry for wavering when she needed him solid. And fear, real fear, that no matter what she does next, the damage might might already be permanent. Because once people start questioning motherhood, loyalty, and truth all at once, there's no easy PR fix. The child remains the line she refuses to cross. DNA tests, documents, proof. To her, that's not transparency, it's surrender. It's turning a child into evidence in a public trial she never agreed to. And in that refusal, she plants her feet even as everything else around her shakes. But the world outside doesn't pause for boundaries. Sponsors wait, foundations stall, initiatives once praised quietly fade from headlines. Staff members live in limbo, unsure whether to plan for next month or update resumes. Reputation doesn't collapse overnight. It bleeds out slowly, one unanswered email at a time. Online, the tone turns harsher. Sympathy evaporates. Comment sections stop asking and start accusing. Every old clip gets rewatched. Every past statement gets reframed. People don't just want truth anymore, they want consequences. And the longer clarity stays out of reach, the more brutal the assumptions become. What's haunting is that none of this is being settled where it could be settled. Not in court, not with evidence, not with transparency. Just hovering in that dangerous space where rumors feel heavier than facts and silence feels louder than denial. Insiders suggest a temporary separation isn't about divorce, it's about survival, cooling the fire before it consumes everything. But pauses don't resolve questions, they only delay them. And while lawyers prepare and statements get drafted, the public keeps building its own version of the story, brick by brick, unchecked. Meghan reportedly talks about fighting back harder than ever. Lawsuits, new projects, even another book, a counter-narrative powerful enough to drown out the noise. But there's a difference between reclaiming a story and rewriting one that's already been accepted by millions. Once belief hardens, it doesn't soften easily. Harry, meanwhile, is said to be stuck between loyalty and self-preservation, wanting to protect his family, but also wanting the doubt to stop, wanting privacy, but also wanting peace. And those two desires don't coexist when the world is demanding answers you can't or won't give. So this story doesn't end with a reveal. It doesn't end with proof or vindication or collapse. It ends in suspension, in that unbearable waiting space where truth could still go either way, but damage has already been done, where silence has cost more than speaking ever might have. And until something breaks, either through evidence, legal action, or a decision that can't be undone, the questions will keep circling. Not because people love scandal, but because unresolved stories demand endings. Whether that ending comes through truth or through exhaustion remains to be seen. But one thing is already clear. Whatever empire was built on control, image, and carefully told stories no longer stands untouched. And once that kind of crack appears, no amount of silence can seal it back up. Silence